Hello. I'm going to talk today about a new subject for me. I'm involved in a program, some of you know, called the Dream Arc. And in that program, it's a live program. It's something that fills your life up. It's a full-on workout for the right brain. And I want to give you some examples of how that is changing my views of life and reality, and how deep that goes in. Because the right brain doesn't look at things in a logical, linear way. And we all talk about that, or we go, oh, yeah, I'm very right brain, But actually, the reality is when you really do apply the process of right brain, non-linear thinking, it's not even thinking, but being or living, it changes the way you see things and it changes the way you do things. So for me, the thing I've been really learning about is rewilding, but not rewilding in the kind of understanding of the term used by ecologists. I'm applying it as a philosophy in a way, or it's emerging as a philosophy for looking at things in life. And I'm really learning, I've learned the most through my wife, actually. And I've noticed, one of the best ways of, I've noticed the way she approaches nature and the garden and life around our community. She's a wildlife warden. Is she approaches it in a very feminine, intuitive way. And I didn't understand it for a long time. And I'm now finally beginning to get it. Because here's an example, we have this beautiful lawn, like a lovely grass lawn outside the back of our house. And my seat where I contemplate in the morning sits overlooking that lawn, and the garden is framed in the background. It's a village garden. We both love the garden. We're gardeners. And I always took kind of pride in my lawn, like many men do, and I suppose women. But it's like you get the lawnmower out and you make it neat and tidy and you keep it well, and it's a nice place to hang out. And over the last few years, we decided to rewild our lawn, and let it grow, not cut it. And I cut some paths so you could get through and come out the gate and things like that. But essentially just let it grow into like wild, long, raggedy grasses and herbs and things that just whatever comes up, weeds and things. And we watched that process for a couple of years now. And this year, one of the things I've really noticed is because I sit out there every morning before dawn, and I do my contemplative practice with my tea, and I just gaze at the world in front of me and inside me. And one of the things I've really noticed is a huge increase in life. And I mean bird life, particularly birds. There's huge amounts of birds come in and they love the long grasses and they flutter around in them. And I realize that it's because there are a lot more insects in there. And so because there's more diversity coming into our garden, then the birds are more attracted. So there's a lot more birds come in, and it's really noticeable strongly. And then all these insects and moths and other things that kind of now come and flutter and live around. So we begin to see this life returning. And for a while I was like, I had to kind of let go of my nice, neat lawn. There's the sort of that slightly controlling aspect that we humans sometimes have. Like we want everything to look neat and tidy. And yet sometimes in our approach to trying to make things look neat and tidy, we lose life. We lose touch with nature, which isn't always neat and tidy. It has a wild kind of, it's not even tidy. You wouldn't call it. It has a wild harmony, right? And so this is like an example of how my view is changing. But then my wife also, I've watched over the years how she approaches the vegetable garden, and you might look at our vegetable garden and go, wow, that looks really messy. It's kind of raggedy as well, like the lawn. And yet, when you look at it, it is filled with life, because vegetables have been left in the autumn, for example, to just self-seed and flower. So, they've not all been pulled out. And so some of them have jumped across into the flower beds, and some of the flowers have jumped across into the vegetable beds. And then other things have come in that just have been brought by birds or insects or whatever. And it's kind of wild. And then whatever likes growing has been encouraged to grow. You know, weeds as well. I mean, big, tangly, difficult weeds like brambles and things that choke, you know, other flowers and plants, things have been, they're taken out. But kind of, you know, low-level weeds, you might call them, are just allowed. So you don't see this neat sort of vegetable garden with rows of everything and, you know, lots of bare soil. Instead, you see a kind of jungly thing with vegetables and flowers randomly all over the place. It's organic in that way, not just organic in that we don't use any fertilizer and stuff. It's organic because it's kind of created its own wild ecosystem. And again, in the early days, I was like, it's so messy, you know, it's like, and there are little bits of things here and little bits over there, and you can't just harvest a monocrop all in one place, and you've got little bits of this, and then some things are not doing it as well as others, but then they fade out, and eventually everything starts to blossom and bloom and enjoy where it is through its own process, right? And when you go to many, you know, vegetable gardens and things like that, you look, they all have this very, you know, tidy look, and all the weeds have been taken out, and it's like these nice neat rows, and you're like, wow, that's really impressive. And yet when you look at our garden, it's just as productive, if not more, but it has more diversity of creatures and insects and things in there, and birds, you know, and so it's incredible. And I never really understood that. It's taken me a while. I've had to let that kind of male ego melt, that one that wants to control, want things neat and tidy sometimes, and, you know, organized, look organized, but in fact it is organized. But there's a wild organizing. There's a uncertainty to it because you never quite know what's going to come next or what's going to fit, and you don't have to overly plan. You know, there's initial planning, but then there's nature's plan, and it's incredible. It's incredible. So like weeds, for example, they hold the moisture in the soil. So you don't want to pull them all out. You know, for years I was saying, come, I just weed that? And she goes, no, you leave it. It's like they retain the moisture and they attract more insects. And I was like, okay, yeah, and it's true. They do. So if you pull it all out, you've got bare earth. Like, what's that? That's, you know, that's our need for it to look tidy. And so this is what I'm learning, right? The right brain operates like this. It's softer, it's more yielding, it's more pliant. It's not obsessed with things looking perfect, you know, and it's much softer in that approach to life. You know, it's much more trusting. It's more risky in a way because it's working with natural systems. And I'm loving that. You know, when I sit there now, I'm like, wow, there's so much life to look at that before wasn't there. And so I would like to invite you to look at this inside yourself, look at this inside our lives, look at, you know, that male ego, you know, it's not just in men. That, you know, I know plenty of women who have a strong male ego. It's masculine, it's the side of the brain that likes order, control, and organization, but linear, right? And there's nothing wrong with those things. But the perfect balance in an ecosystem, according to me anyway, from what I'm learning, is not a 50-50 balance. You know, it's funny in a way if you know GENEKEYS and you know that the key of equilibrium is gene key 50, right? Which is half 100. It's a halfway, but it's not a 50-50 balance. A perfect balance in an ecosystem is less structure and more wildness. You know, it's probably, I don't know, this is my intuitive right brain feeling from working now like this, it's probably 66% wildness, 33% structure and form. And you can pretty much apply that to anything in life. You can apply it to your relationships, to parenting, to your business, anything. If you have too much of the linear male planning structure stuff, it will throttle the wildness, you know, and the wildness won't be able to get a proper grip and it won't fully be able to flourish. Right, so you have to let go of some of that need for things to look and feel and be the way your ego would like them to be. Apply it to your relationships, apply it to your partner or your friends or your family. You know, we would like to control that person in some way. We'd like them to not behave in that way and do those things. We'd like them to be a much more neatly clipped garden. and can't you just clip those things and tidy them up? Because those traits in your nature. And of course, there are certain traits like big, thick, invasive weeds that must be dealt with because they're self-destructive, right? And so they have to be dealt with in hopefully a diplomatic, kind, honest, transparent ways. But all the other ones, we could actually let go a little bit of our need to have our relationships perfect and always just this, seeing that person to behave in this way and, not let them have those traits that kind of make it a bit messy between us. And if we could yield a bit more, if we could go more towards that feminine, that kindness, that softness approach. I don't mean, by the way, man, woman here. I'm talking poles, right? So when I say the feminine is soft, I don't mean that women are soft. I want to make that absolutely clear. It's the pole, right? The masculine pole is the one that's like, that's the way I'm looking at it. Many people could look at it the other way around. Oh, the feminine one is the fierce one and the masculine is the soft one. You can look at it how you want, right? But I'm talking poles, okay? So let's not get attached to like those gender things here, because that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about these poles inside us, animus and anima, Jung called them. And too much of that masculine, of that male pole, that linear left brain, anywhere in our lives causes strangulation. It causes resentment. It causes, in business, stagnation, in fact, and a lot of communication problems and relational problems, because those are the areas of a business or of an inner world or of an ecosystem or of any system, natural system. Those are the parts, those feminine parts, those relational parts, those flow parts, those freedom parts. Those are the parts that need a greater attention, right? The structure, the form, the planning, the organization, that is much more minimal in order to have a perfect balanced ecosystem. That's my personal insight that I've gathered from operating within this program called the Dream Arc, which is all about, bringing back the power of right brain usage. It's not just thinking, it's right brain living. And this is what it is. It's to begin to melt that harder side, that more opinionated side of our personality, our need for order, right? And the feminine side, the right brain, actually thrives with a little more chaos, with a little more looseness, with a little more wildness. And so it's a huge thing when we start applying that to all aspects of our life. If you get that teaching in the core of your being, you'll start to apply it to all areas of your life. We use the art of contemplation to do that, to have breakthroughs and look and see, wow, I need to let go of that. I need to soften my approach to that. I need to, whether that relationship or that person or that opinion or that view or that, life view that I hold. Yeah, so working with nature, working with others, working with flow, working with freedom, with a smattering of organization and planning, but a real ability to yield and soften and go with the flow of life and the flow of nature and be easier with yourself and easier with others. Letting things dissolve a bit, letting your own ego dissolve a bit. It's like it's the wisdom of age, of something that becomes seasoned, of something that becomes wiser. The wiser something becomes, the more yielding it becomes. It doesn't become more hard and stagnant. It becomes softer like water. These are the teachings of the Tao. So I hope they're inspiring for you. If you want to apply them more deeply, then I do recommend the Dream Arc as a program that really helps you to kind of look at life in this way. It starts to bring some of the messages from our dream life, the deep core messages of our unconscious and our soul, more consciously into our waking life. That's my experience anyway. So hope that's inspiring to you here today. Rewilding our souls. Thank you for listening.